Hello, Art Foundation students. I am going to begin showing you how to do your midtones and your highlights today. So hopefully you've been able to work on your shadow areas, which are all of the dark regions, dark grays, and dark blacks. So I have worked on mine as well, and I'm going to share that with you. This is the original image, and I have most of my shadows defined. Notice I have the shadow under her neck, around the mouth and nose, her eyelashes, and around her eyebrows, and in her hair as well. I also have added an additional layer to make the background actually a pure white rather than the checkerboard pattern. So I wanted to show you how to make that layer now so that you can have a layer underneath your background that's just pure white. So down here where we made the new layers before, if you just click on it, it creates a new layer. You can double click and then actually label it. So I'm just going to call this layer practice because that's the layer I'm practicing with right now. Once I have that layer, I'm able to drag the layer below my background. Remember, your background is your original image of your celebrity that's locked. The layer practice now actually has a transparent background, notice, because I'm able to hide it. I would like to put in a solid white background. So underneath your gradient tool right here is your paint bucket tool. My paint bucket tool is whatever color's in this window. So I'm going to double click. I actually am going to choose white, or if it doesn't let you do that, you can just choose the top left corner and hit OK. And then I'm going to paint bucket in to that layer. Notice it now poured white all the way into that layer. And just to make sure that it's all the way in there, there is that layer as an all white layer. Okay, now say you messed up on a layer and you don't want it anymore, you can actually drag it down to the little garbage can down here, which is just highlighted there with my red highlighter. Now I'm back to my original. I have my shadows and I have my background and I have my layer 1. I'm going to show my background again because now we're going to define those darker, but not totally shadows, but more of those mid-tone regions. So I'm looking at the value in her skin, some of the shadows around her eye, her forehead, and so forth. I'm going to use my zoom button again to zoom in. And now I'm going to be concentrating on specifically this area, this shadow of her cheek. One of the ways to define that color is by using an eyedropper tool. The eyedropper is right here, and it will allow you to select in that area. Now I have to make sure that I'm on the background layer so that I can actually pick up the color from that photograph. When I pick it up, notice right here, that's actually my shadow. I'm going to get rid of that. There's my shadow color that's more of a shadow mid-tone. So it's that gray tone that I'm looking for. If I was to paint using the brush tool directly onto her face right now, in this area, I'd be painting on the background. Remember, that's locked. So I now want to choose my midtones. Notice my midtones are underneath my shadows. I've moved them to that location. And I'm going to now draw on that particular spot. And as I draw, like so, it's not going to expose anything because I have to make sure that this eyeball is actually showing right here. This is my toggle, my visibility. So it's hiding that area. Now, I've already drawn in some of my midtone areas, but I felt like I could improve this region a little bit more. So I'm actually going to erase some of what I have and add in some of the gray tones. So let me just show you what I have. I have some of that tone in there, but I'm not entirely happy with it. I'm going to fix it by erasing here in just a moment. This is your eraser tool right here, and I want to make sure that my eraser tool, although I don't know how big it is right now, when I start to use it, it'll start to erase at a certain width. Remember, we can change the size of any tool. When you're here, you can change the opacity of it and the size of it. I can use my bracket tool to the right of the P, like party, to make it bigger and smaller. So now I have this, and I'm just going to erase what I had in that region because I'm not happy with it. I want to fix that region a little bit. So I'm just going to remove that. I'm now at a blank slate. I'm going to go back to that eyedropper tool and actually click on that color range that's right in that area. Now I'm going to choose my brush tool. And once I've chosen my brush tool, I want to choose a size that's applicable. I also am not going to put a full opacity. If I paint a full opacity, it's going to be too harsh of a mark. I want to have something that's a little bit softer where I can see through a little bit. So I'm going to paint on in this region right here. All right, I'm just kind of defining that area. Now I'm going to make that brush a little smaller because it got a little bit too big for me. I can always go back in and erase if need be. Now, that's a little bit harsh, but I know that I can blend it with something called the smudge tool. So I'm going to start with erasing just a little bit with the eraser tool right here because it just got a little thick for me. I'm just going to thin it out a little bit and come back to that shadow in a minute. I just am working on that very edge line. That's that mid-tone gray region of her face. Then I'm going to find the smudge tool. The smudge tool is actually right, oh, sorry about that. Right under, there it is, right under this tool here. It's actually the third tool down, the smudge tool right here. And now the smudge tool can also be made larger or smaller, and I can actually use it, and what it does is it softens that edge. Now you might be having a hard time seeing that on my screen, so I'm going to show you without the picture of her underneath. Look at how it just kind of pulls that blend of color, and it kind of blends it softly, so it's almost like putting a nice soft brush on your drawing. Let's go ahead and add in some more color so that I have more to smudge. I'm going to add in a little bit more color here to her cheekbone, just in this region, a little bit here along the jawline. I'm then going to take that smudge tool again, which I really like. This tool is really handy. And I'm just going to soften right along the edge as best that I can. Now let's show you what I've got. So this is what I've kind of put in for my smudge tool. Notice you can pull the pixels, pull that tonality, and change the softness just like you could with a paintbrush. So at this point, I'm going to then show you how to add in highlights. I'm going to zoom back out, and if you can notice, I've now put in some highlights in her eyes and in her lips. Let's zoom in to see that. The eyes have some whites in there. I'm going to add a little bit of fleck of white into those pupils and irises, and then maybe fix her lips just a little bit more. So let's look at the original image. So notice here she has some glisten or gloss on her lips, as well as she has 2 white dots in her eyes. Since I'm working on that highlight layer, I want to make sure the eyeball is visible, and I'm on the highlight layer. I'm now ready to use that eyedropper tool again and find that color, which is almost pure white, that I can define the eyes, or that little dot in the eyes, the gloss on her lips, top lip and bottom lip. So now I'm going to use that brush tool again, and in this case, I'm actually going to just do a small little dot right in this region. Let me make sure that I've got my brush the correct size. So I'm making the brush much smaller, and I'm just going to tap right there on her eye. I'm going to tap again on her eye there. I'm also going to go along the lip line here just to define that a little bit. Go in here, define that shape a little bit along her lip where there's that nice glisten and gloss. And then I can always go back in and smudge it out a little bit to make it look like it's blending in to the lipstick itself. So now using that smudge tool, which again is my favorite tool, use that smudge tool to your advantage to really make it look like it's blending as best you can. I'm just going to smudge a little bit here and there, just to soften it just a little bit so that glow becomes interesting. Let's take a look at what we have completed now. So I'm at this point, I need to add in some more midtones. I've lost a lot of the value along her jawline. I'm going to need to add that in as well. I also have some hair that I need to add in, some of the values in the hair. So really read those values, find those midtones, and start to really make them look effective overall. Let me go ahead and open up my finished version of this here. You notice I've gone in and done the highlights / midtones and shadows in the hair. I've really defined that jawline, that shadow along her cheek. I put in those highlights in the lips as well as in the eyes themselves. So this is indeed the finished version of this image. From here, you're going to be required to save this image. So I'm going to take a screenshot, which on my Mac computer might be slightly different than how you take a screenshot on your computer. Take a screenshot, and then this will be actually put into the document, which is the classwork assignment document that I put in Classroom. And it's under the classwork section, and it says, please put your finished image in there. So you have until Friday to work on this. If you need more time, just let me know, not a problem. Let me know if you're having any trouble with Photopea at all, if you're having trouble with the login or any questions regarding that. I'm very willing to help you. Thank you.